Stop scrolling. Because what just surfaced online isn't just another messy headline, it's not just another celebrity feud. According to Tasha K, there's alleged paperwork, financial patterns, and behind-the-scenes arrangements that completely reframe how people see Claressa Shields. And if even half of it holds weight, this situation doesn't just shift perception, it detonates it. The phrase that has everyone frozen right now? Cash buffer. Not girlfriend, not partner, not business ally. A buffer. When Tasha K dropped that term, the internet didn't just react, it spiraled. Because a cash buffer isn't romantic language. It's financial language. It suggests positioning, protection, strategic placement. And if the claims are true, it paints Claressa Shields not just as an athlete in the spotlight, but as someone potentially positioned between money, influence, and liability. And that's why this feels bigger than gossip. For years, Claressa Shields has built a reputation around dominance, discipline, championships, Olympic gold, power. She's not someone typically associated with manipulation narratives or quiet financial maneuvering. She's known for fighting in the ring, not navigating shadows behind the curtain. But Tasha K is claiming there's another layer. Allegedly, according to her breakdown, certain financial movements, business alignments, and public positioning may not have been accidental. The suggestion? That someone needed insulation, and a buffer role, if real, would mean being the person placed between risk and exposure. That's not a light accusation, because if you're labelled a buffer, it implies someone else benefits while you absorb heat. And here's where it gets even more intense. Supporters of Claressa Shields are calling this reckless defamation. They argue this is another attempt to stir chaos around powerful black women. They say there's zero verified proof, just speculation dressed up as tea. But critics are saying something different. They're asking why certain connections align too neatly, why certain financial interactions appear at specific moments, why timing matters more than people are admitting. This isn't about proving guilt, it's about questioning structure. And structure is what makes this dangerous. Because if Tasha K truly has documentation, not hearsay, not anonymous whispers, but tangible receipts, then the narrative around Claressa Shields could pivot from athlete to strategic participant overnight. That's why people are watching closely. Not because they want drama, but because they want clarity. And clarity is rare when money enters the room. The biggest question right now isn't whether the evidence is explosive. It's whether it's solid. Because if it is, this doesn't just change headlines. It changes alliances. Hashtag celebrity tea, hashtag financial drama, hashtag industry. Exposed, before this spins out of control, let's slow it down. Because the phrase cash buffer sounds explosive. But what does it actually mean? According to commentary circulating from Tasha K, the term is being used to describe a person who allegedly sits between financial flows and public exposure. That does not automatically mean illegal activity. It does not automatically mean wrongdoing. And it definitely does not equal guilt. But it does suggest strategy. In business language, a buffer can mean protection, a layer, a shield between one entity and another. It can refer to someone whose presence absorbs scrutiny, redirects attention, or separates risk from a primary source. That's why the term hits so hard when linked to Claressa Shields, because she's known as a fighter, not a financial firewall. Now, here's where things get sensitive. There is currently no verified court document, no official charge, and no confirmed public filing proving that Claressa Shields has acted as any sort of financial intermediary in questionable dealings. What exists right now is commentary, interpretation, and speculation being amplified online, and speculation spreads fast when it sounds technical. Supporters of Claressa Shields are pushing back hard. They argue this is a pattern, that when high-profile athletes, especially outspoken women, dominate their field, narratives start appearing to destabilize their image. They're saying the term cash buffer is vague enough to sound sinister without proving anything concrete. Critics, however, are pointing to alleged timelines and associations that they believe deserve scrutiny. They're not claiming proven misconduct. They're asking why certain financial alignments and public relationships overlap in ways that feel strategic. But here's the important distinction. As of now, these are claims made in commentary, not conclusions reached by law enforcement or courts. And that matters. Because there's a huge difference between a blogger analyzing patterns and verified investigative findings. Right now, this story sits firmly in the first category. Still, the reason this is gaining traction isn't just the term itself. It's the psychology behind it. If someone is labeled a buffer, it implies intentional placement. It suggests someone knew something could draw attention and chose to create distance through positioning. But implication is not proof. And in high-profile conversations, implication is often weaponized before evidence catches up, or fails to. So what's actually being suggested? From the outside, the narrative implies that financial structures surrounding certain individuals may have layers, that some money movements, business partnerships, or affiliations could be designed to reduce visibility or risk for someone else. Again, this is being discussed in commentary circles, not confirmed in court. That nuance is critical, because in today's media environment, a phrase can go viral faster than facts can catch up. And once a label sticks, it's hard to remove. So the real question right now isn't, did this happen? The real question is, why did this narrative land so easily? Why were people ready to believe it? And what does that say about public trust, celebrity branding, and financial transparency in sports and entertainment? Because sometimes a story spreads not because it's proven, but because it sounds plausible. And plausible is powerful. Our hashtag media narratives, hashtag financial speculation, hashtag public perception. Now here's where this situation gets layered. Because whenever Tasha K drops something this heavy, people don't just ask what was said. They ask why now? Timing in media is rarely accidental, and critics of Tasha K argue that she understands exactly how narrative cycles work. She knows when attention is high, she knows when a name is trending, and she knows how to introduce a phrase that sticks, even before it's substantiated. That's not illegal. That's media strategy. But it becomes explosive when the person involved is Claressa Shields, an athlete whose brand revolves around discipline, dominance, and public resilience. If you introduce ambiguity around finances into a reputation built on strength, the ripple effect is immediate. To supporters of Claressa Shields are asking a fair question. If there is real evidence, where is it? Is it documentation? Is it interpretation? Is it contextualized? Because there's a difference between reviewing records and constructing a narrative around them. On the other side, viewers who follow Tasha K argue that she has built her brand around uncovering uncomfortable patterns. They claim that even when she stirs controversy, she often bases discussions on available public records, even if her delivery is dramatic. But here's the reality. Public records can show transactions. They can show associations. They can show timelines. They cannot show intent. And intent is what makes something strategic instead of coincidental. That's the tension in this story. Right now, what exists publicly is commentary pointing to patterns. No official criminal accusation. No confirmed financial misconduct ruling. No court finding labeling Claressa Shields as any kind of intermediary. So why does this feel so volatile? Because perception moves faster than paperwork. Once the term cash buffer entered the conversation, it reframed how people interpret past interactions. Suddenly, ordinary financial arrangements can look suspicious through a new lens. Partnerships seem layered. Timing feels deliberate. This is how narratives reshape memory. But here's another critical layer. Tasha K herself has a controversial history in media. Her credibility is debated. Some see her as fearless. Others see her as reckless. That duality means every claim she makes is immediately polarizing, and polarization fuels engagement. So the question becomes, is this investigative reporting? Or is this narrative framing built around suggestive language? The answer right now is unclear, because without verified documentation being publicly released and independently confirmed, the story remains in the realm of allegation. But that doesn't stop impact. Reputational damage doesn't wait for court dates. It doesn't wait for fact-checkers. It spreads through conversation. And once people start asking, is there more here? The shadow lingers, even if nothing is ever proven. That's why timing matters. If this claim surfaced during a quiet period, it might fade. If it surfaces during heightened visibility, it amplifies. And right now, amplification is happening. But amplification does not equal validation. It equals attention. And attention, in the digital age, is currency. Hashtag timing matters, hashtag media strategy, hashtag narrative control. Now we're at the most important part of this entire conversation, because speculation is loud. But proof is specific. Right now, online discussions surrounding Claressa Shields are built on commentary and interpretation, not confirmed legal findings. So before this narrative snowballs into something irreversible, it's critical to understand what would actually qualify as evidence. Because financial relationships alone are not proof of wrongdoing. Let's break this down carefully. If someone were truly acting as a financial buffer in a legally questionable sense, you would typically see one or more of the following: court filings identifying structured financial concealment, verified transfers linked to documented misconduct, official investigative findings, charges, subpoenas, or formal allegations, confirmed regulatory scrutiny. As of now, none of that has been publicly verified regarding Claressa Shields. What exists instead are interpretations of financial proximity and timing. And here's the thing most people miss. In sports and entertainment, financial layering is common and legal. Athletes often work with business managers, advisors, partners, sponsors, and structured entities. Money moves through LLCs. Partnerships are formed for tax efficiency. Branding deals involve intermediaries. Without context, those structures can look suspicious. With context, they're normal business practice. This is where the danger lies. Once a phrase like cash buffer enters public discourse, ordinary financial structuring can be reframed as something sinister, even if it's routine. And that doesn't mean questions are invalid. It means they require precision. Right now, critics dissecting the situation are pointing to alleged overlaps in timing and relationships. They argue that certain alignments raise eyebrows. But raised eyebrows are not indictments. And this distinction matters deeply for reputational fairness. If there is real documentation, it must meet a higher threshold than online interpretation. It must demonstrate intent, concealment, or legal violation, not just proximity. Because proximity is not proof. That's the line separating gossip from investigative finding. Now, here's the part that complicates everything. Public trust in institutions is low. Public trust in media is divided. Public appetite for scandal is high. So when someone like Tasha K introduces a narrative suggesting strategic positioning, many people are already primed to believe it, especially if they already distrust celebrity financial transparency. But belief is not evidence. And in situations like this, narratives often outrun facts. The question becomes, will this story produce verifiable documentation? Or will it remain a conversation fueled by language? Because without independently confirmed records demonstrating wrongdoing, the label cash buffer remains exactly that, a label. And labels can stain reputations even when they never solidify into charges. This is where the stakes escalate. If no official finding emerges, the narrative eventually fades. But not without leaving residue. If documentation surfaces, the situation transforms instantly into legal territory. Right now, we're in the waiting phase. And waiting is uncomfortable in the age of immediacy. Hashtag proof matters, hashtag financial transparency, hashtag reputation, risk. This is the part nobody likes to admit. Reputations don't collapse in courtrooms first, they collapse in conversations. Right now, the name Claressa Shields is being paired with a phrase that sounds financial, strategic, and potentially suspicious, even though no verified legal finding supports wrongdoing. That pairing alone is powerful enough to create doubt. And doubt is sticky. It doesn't need proof to spread, it only needs repetition. Once a term like cash buffer circulates long enough, people stop asking whether it's verified. They start asking whether it feels plausible. And plausibility can be more damaging than evidence because it lives in perception. Now layer this with another reality. High-profile women, especially dominant, outspoken ones, often face amplified scrutiny. When a woman builds her brand around strength, independence, and competitive dominance, any suggestion of behind-the-scenes maneuvering gets magnified. Critics become louder, doubters become quicker to assume complexity. That doesn't mean questions are invalid. It means they carry extra weight. Supporters of Claressa Shields argue that this is exactly what's happening. They claim the narrative is being inflated because she represents power in spaces historically resistant to it. They say strong women are often reframed as manipulative the moment financial language enters the room. On the other side, skeptics argue that accountability should apply equally, regardless of gender, success, or status. Both sides believe they're defending fairness, and that tension fuels the story. Meanwhile, Tasha K operates in a media space where controversy drives attention. That doesn't automatically invalidate her claims, but it does mean every claim is filtered through a lens of motive. Is this exposure? Is this commentary? Is this escalation for engagement? Only documentation can answer that definitively. But here's what makes this dangerous in the interim. Silence can be interpreted as strategy. Response can be interpreted as defensiveness. If Claressa Shields addresses it directly, critics may say she's reacting because there's something there. If she ignores it, critics may say she's hoping it fades. That's the double bind public figures face. And the longer ambiguity lingers, the more space speculation occupies. Brands are built on clarity, suspicion thrives in vagueness. So the real question now becomes strategic. Does she confront the narrative publicly? Does she allow legal representatives to respond? Or does she refuse to legitimize unverified claims? Each choice carries consequences. And this is why timing, proof, and measured response matter more than ever. Because once narratives crystallize, reversing them is nearly impossible, even if no evidence ever materializes. Hashtag narrative power, hashtag brand protection, hashtag public perception. This is the fork in the road. Right now, the conversation around Claressa Shields exists in a grey zone, fueled by commentary from Tasha K, amplified by social media, and dissected by audiences who don't yet have independently verified documentation confirming wrongdoing. So what happens next depends on one thing. Does evidence materialize or not? Let's look at both paths clearly. If no verified documentation, no official investigation, no regulatory findings, and no legal actions emerge, this narrative will eventually lose oxygen. Not because it was harmless, but because stories without substance eventually collapse under their own weight. In that scenario, the phrase cash buffer becomes a moment, not a marker. The controversy fades into archive clips. Reputation stabilizes through continued professional success. However, and this is important, even unproven narratives leave residue. Search engines don't forget, screenshots don't vanish, headlines linger. Even if cleared, a name once linked to suspicion carries faint echoes long after clarity returns. That's the quiet cost of digital age allegations. Now let's be equally honest about the other possibility. Or if independently confirmed records, court filings, investigative findings, or regulatory documentation surface showing deliberate financial structuring designed to conceal, protect, or redirect liability, then this conversation changes immediately. It stops being media commentary. It becomes legal reality. In that case, brand partnerships could freeze, sponsorships could pause, public statements would shift from denial to defense. The narrative becomes anchored in documentation, not debate. But as of now, there is no public legal confirmation supporting that outcome. And until that changes, the story remains in speculation territory. The bigger lesson. This situation isn't just about one athlete or one blogger. It's about how quickly language reshapes perception. A phrase can travel globally before proof travels locally. Suspicion can trend before facts are verified. Narratives can form before evidence is examined. That doesn't mean claims should never be questioned. It means questioning must be precise. Right now, we are watching a live example of reputational risk in the age of viral commentary. We are seeing how quickly financial terminology can transform public perception, even in the absence of official confirmation. And this is the final truth. The internet does not wait for verdicts. It reacts to vocabulary. So whether this fades quietly or escalates dramatically depends entirely on what, if anything, emerges beyond commentary. Until then, the situation remains exactly where it is, unproven, unverified, and heavily discussed. Hashtag reputation, risk. Hashtag evidence, matters. Hashtag media dynamics.